Welcome to Breakthrough, a podcast of business owners, leaders, and innovators within Columbia County, Oregon. This podcast is brought to you by the Columbia Economic Team, which houses the Columbia County SBDC, Keep It Local Columbia County, Grow Greater St. Helens, and the Columbia County Tourism Program. Also, thank you PCC OMIC and Scappoose for making the Fab Lab available for us for today's podcast.
I'm Jason Moon. I'm the director of Columbia County Small Business Development Center.
I am Dave Lauridsen, the owner of Crooked Creek Brewery.
I'm Tyler Tolles. I'm the summer intern with Columbia County Small Business Development Center.
Well, welcome to the first ever Columbia County Small Business Development Center podcast. The purpose of this podcast is just to have casual conversations with our business owners here in the county. And today, he was very agreeable to this idea, and I'm super happy to have him here. We have Dave.
Somewhat agreeable.
Somewhat agreeable. Dave is the owner of Crooked Creek Brewery, and thank you so much for being here, Dave.
Sure. Appreciate you having me on as your little guinea pig here.
Yeah, we should hit that applause button just once, you know? Just do it once. Yeah.
Yeah, Dave.
Nice. Woo. All right. Well, as I said, we just kind of want to have a casual conversation about what it's like for you doing business in Columbia County, how you got your start, and many of us in the community are pretty aware of how you are so community focused and some of the events that you do at the tap room, and we just kind of want to hear about the trajectory and what's going on at the brewery. So, I guess. Start with the origins. Like, how did you get into brewing, and why did you think that was a good idea?
That was one of the first things I was going to ask too.
How did I get into brewing? Well, how I originally got into brewing as a home brewer, I kind of got cornered into brewing. Actually, I had no interest in brewing when I started. My best friend was a home brewer and had brewed for many years and never interested me at all. You know, the beer was okay, but didn't really compete with much that you could get off of the shelf. And to me, to spend a day, brewing and then waiting around a few weeks and then, possibly getting infections or things that were going to make it go bad just didn't really interest me when I could buy beer for a couple bucks, at the time. And, he kept telling me, oh, you'd enjoy it. And always had some excuse. And then there was one day where he finally had me cornered and I just had no way to say no, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll help you out. And so I had so much fun.
So you enjoyed beer before you started brewing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was something that you were drinking, enjoying, and then a buddy was like, hey, you should homebrew.
Yeah. Yeah. So he got me into homebrewing, right. And that might have been the last time that he actually homebrewed. And I like totally fell in love with it and just got crazy, obsessed with it. And
what year was that?
Ooh, that would have been about 12 years ago now, at least, maybe 13 even.
Wow.
But yeah, it's been a few years.
Very cool.
So before you're in your location now, you were in the location on Columbia.
Yep.
That's correct. And before that, were you selling beer out of your home or?
No, absolutely
not at all?
Oh, no.
You were just brewing on your own?
I was just a home brewer. And dare I say this in Columbia County, but this was back in California where I started home brewing. And, we moved out here. We were kind of over California, wanted a rural experience. And this was a place that we discovered and fell in love with and moved out here. And, having a brewery was kind of a pipe dream at that time, but it wasn't really something I had my sights set on, or it wasn't something I was actively pursuing or determined to do. But, it was always like, yeah, it'd be something if the pieces fell into place, it'd be a lot of fun to do. I was in a creative field at the time and was kind of seeing that the industry was kind of changing and probably wasn't going to sustain me forever. So I was kind of thinking like, what's next in my life? And pieces kind of fell in place for this to happen. So here we are.
So I've been fortunate enough to be out at the brewery. You occasionally do brewery open houses, which I think is really cool, out in Warren. When you bought that property in Warren, was that the idea that you were going to use that to build a brewery?
No, not at all, actually. As a matter of fact, I didn't want to use that as a brewery. I I always liked brewery experiences where you go on site and, you see all the shiny stainless in the background, and, there's a little tap room up front, and, you get the whole experience all in one package. And so I was really determined to do that. And we just couldn't find a spot that was suitable out here in Columbia County. It's a little bit tricky because there's been very few breweries, and zoning is a big thing. And it seems like every property that we thought we could possibly do that with, we just can't run into some kind of zoning issue. And then COVID hit and, kind of shut things down. And I had already bought this brewing system, so it was kind of sitting there in our pole barn collecting dust. And I used to just homebrew out there. And at that point, it was just with COVID compounding on top of everything else, not being able to find a location. It was like, all right, either we just rehab this pole barn and do it in a not ideal situation for what I would really like to do, or we just sell the system and move on with life and forget about it. And I said, you know what, let's do it. It's like, maybe it's not going to be everything that I want, but it'll work. If we can grow it, it's kind of a proof of concept model for what we were doing, because it saved us a lot on overhead, and not having to build out something massive. So we did it, and here we are, and we're still there. We'll probably be there for a couple of years, but I do have dreams of building a bigger brewery one of these days.
So with that dream, does it come the shiny stainless with the tap room connected to it, or you're open to?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I love being down on the riverfront in St. Helens, but the reality is the St. Helens water kind of sucks compared to Warren water. In Warren we have literally some of the best water in the entire country, and it's no joke. It's something pretty special.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not like God's gift to brewing or anything, but I think I make okay beer, but I think the water really makes it something pretty special. So it'd be hard to give that up.
It's one of the main ingredients, right?
It's one of the main ingredients, yeah, like 96, 97%, yeah.
I always tell people there's water in beer, yeah. Well, speaking of water, the name, I love this story behind this. You have a creek that runs behind your house.
We do.
It's not called Crooked Creek, though, right?
It is not called Crooked Creek.
And I'd like you to share with the listeners and viewers, what was the original idea for the name for the brewery, and then how did you come up with Crooked Creek?
Sure, yeah. So originally we were going to be called Meander Brewing, as the creek meanders through our property, as most creeks often do.
Right.
And as I started applying for our various licensing, and these were with pretty educated people like TTB and OLCC people, I realized that no one can say the word meander.
Meander.
When they see it.
What do they say?
Most people say meander. A lot of people would say menander or
Menander.
That's right.
Stutter through some variation of a mispronounced version of meander. And I was like, ooh, this is cringy. I can't do that. Let's change this while we can. So started thinking, well, what other kind of words resemble that? I wasn't tied to meander or even that concept, but I thought it was a good concept. I was trying to do something kind of rural themed, based on, rural Columbia County. And so what is like meandering? It's like, well, the creek's crooked, and first place you go is looking up URLs and social media handles, and amazingly everything was available.
Wow.
Which, with 9,000 breweries.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And, wineries and distilleries, they all fall under that same category. So when you lump all of those thousands of businesses into people that are looking for URLs, and those were available, I was like, done. So,
awesome.
Yeah, so we grabbed Crooked Creek, and that was it.
Has Meander made any appearances at the brewery?
None whatsoever.
You haven't named a beer Meander yet?
Nope.
Or made merch?
Nope. I think our dog, Mimi will get a beer before Meander does.
That's awesome. Well, now, as Tyler mentioned earlier, obviously the brewery is in Warren. The tap room started there up on Columbia. Now you've purchased the building down on the water, which is that whole area is highly under construction, but will be great and beautiful one day. What is the plan from that location going forward? I mean, is it to continue doing what you're doing now? Is there going to be something different that we're going to see here soon from you at the brewery or at the tap room?
Well, a couple changes that we have coming immediately would first of all be that we've got a kitchen coming. We've got a pretty big name chef coming on board. Chef Jill is coming on. She was the executive chef at Deschutes Brewery for 16 years.
Awesome.
And was someone that I met early on in the process when we were looking at building this thing out. And I happened to meet her through a random connection up at Meeting Place where her husband was working for a very short time. And he started asking about a hat I was wearing that was from some brewery, and it wasn't my brewery because we weren't a brewery at that point, but he started asking some questions about a hat, and he said, "Oh, my wife works at a brewery." And I said, "Oh, cool." He's like, "Yeah, she's always wanted to open a restaurant, and we are out here in Columbia County, blah blah blah." He's like, "Yeah, you guys should meet." I was like, "All right, let's meet." And like 2 days later, we were sitting down from coffee, and I had no idea who she was, and she introduced herself, and I was like, Why are you meeting with me? Like some little home brewer that thinks he can open a brewery, and
But she lives out here in Columbia County.
She lives out here in Columbia County and had dreams of working locally and doing something a little bit smaller than what she was doing, and so here we are. Yeah, this thing kind of came full circle because, like I was saying early on, we were looking for a facility that we could do everything on site, and it just didn't exist. And so unfortunately that plan with Jill kind of fell through early on, and it's like, all right, well, we're going to do this on a small scale, where we're not, putting our entire livelihoods at risk forever, which in hindsight, I guess I did anyways, but
I was going to say
that wasn't the plan. But anyways, yeah. And then a couple months ago, she reached back out and said, "Hey, just want to let you know, I just left my position at Deschutes. And, I understand you've got a kitchen that's not being utilized currently. So if you want to try this again, let's do it."
Wow.
So kind of put a little bit of rush on getting the kitchen built out because it wasn't really something we were planning on doing for about another year. But it was just an amazing opportunity that I didn't want to miss. And I think that Columbia County is ready for a high dining experience like she's going to be able to provide us. So it's a pretty cool opportunity to get her.
Yeah.
So what's the Crooked Creek food menu going to look like?
It's going to be kind of an elevated pub food menu. So we'll do smash burgers. We'll have veggie options of a lot of stuff. So we'll have some salads. We're going to do some fish. We're going to do like weekend steaks, like ribeyes on the weekends.
Nice.
Bratwurst. She actually was working with, I can't remember which sausage company, but she was developing a bratwurst when she was at Deschutes, and now it's one that you can actually get at like Fred Meyer and stuff. And
Wow.
yeah, so she's the one that developed that. So we'll probably be either using that one or developing another one down the road. So, but we'd like to do like some beer dinners and a lot of special events and stuff like that.
Really excited, especially for those veggie options.
Yes.
I've had the privilege of meeting Chef Jill, and seems really amazing. And again, just having those stars align, her being located out here in Columbia County, and then those encounter you said at the Meeting Place.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't get better than meeting at the Meeting
Right.
Place,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I mean, there's been so many different ways where the stars have just aligned along the way, where, like early on, just trying to find a location and, writing a business plan, like you see some building that's like, okay, I know that's in a commercial zone. Like, how could I make it work? Like a rundown, like one building house or something that's
Yeah.
like, has maybe good visibility or something. You're like, all right, could I make that work? And then you kind of rewrite the whole business plan around that. And then, you start talking to the municipalities and they're like, oh, there's no sidewalks and there's no storm drains. And, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars of infrastructure before you can even touch a building that's falling down, and, we went through that. I went through that, probably 6-8 different times. And, you just get discouraged and, think it's never going to happen. And then, we ended up with one of really the premier spots in in the county, in my opinion. And we really, really scored with what we got. So hindsight, it's like, all right, there was a reason all those things fell through, and it's frustrating in the moment, but you just got to, keep your sights up, stay diligent about pursuing that dream, and, hopefully it happens. We got lucky it happened, and hopefully for others it will happen like that.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about luck and stars aligning and everything, which, some of that is at play, but it's been a lot of hard work on your end. If entrepreneurs are intelligent and they're dreamers, but they're risk takers, and you've taken a lot of risks, and they seem to be paying off and continue to pay off. What sort of advice would you give to other entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs as far as sort of that? How do you balance the dream and the risk?
Well, I guess as far as the risk part goes, I think I don't really know anything else. Like, I've always been self-employed. I think there's definitely a place where you can force things to happen. Like early on when I was talking to Jill, we could have made it happen, but we would have been out of business on day one.
Yeah.
We were looking at the old Precision Composites building there on the highway, and great visibility, great size building. We could have done everything that we wanted there, but again, the infrastructure wasn't there. We were trying to figure out, okay, where can we come up with this money? I was new to the industry, so no one was going to loan me money. But with Jill coming on board, having 15 years or many years in the brewing industry already, we probably could have swung it. But again, it was a huge risk just in terms of the infrastructure that was needed for a building that we weren't going to own. And then, we were aiming on opening April 1st of 2020. And, a month later, the whole world shut down. So, had we forced that and made it happen, it'd be over, it'd be all over. So, it's calculated risk. I think it's calculated risk. Maybe
I like that. Yeah.
So
that's good advice.
Don't put everything on the line all at once. It's once you see some momentum's going, it's all right. Okay, I can, I'm in it at this point. So, I've got to keep moving forward. But you can kind of increase that risk, as you see momentum starting to gain traction.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think something that I think is, obviously you're probably the only tap room brewery in Columbia County, but what I also really appreciate and think is unique is you always have a ton of events happening at the tap room, whether it's, live music, there's cribbage tournaments, there's bingo nights, people can have birthday parties there, tons of different stuff. So when did you kind of start implementing all these different events, and how do you feel like that impacts your business?
Well, events definitely help a lot. I think early on the events were kind of to make up for not having a kitchen. In our uptown tap room, we had several food options close by, so people would bring in food and stuff. There wasn't really an ability to ever build a kitchen in that location, but when we moved down to this much bigger space, it's all right, how are we going to fill seats without a kitchen? And it's all right, events get people in. And what I've realized over the almost year that we've been down there is, every event seems to have its own kind of niche crowd, which I think is really cool. So, if we do events 5 nights a week or 6 nights a week and everyone's got their own little niche crowd, then hopefully we can fill 80 seats, 5 nights a week with different people.
Yeah.
It's we do want repeat customers, obviously, but I don't really want to see people there 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week. That's not what we're trying to create with the brewery.
Right.
We're trying to create a community experience that's healthy. We're not trying to create, we're an alcohol related business, so there is that risk, but we're not trying to create repeat customers that way, that we're just creating a bunch of alcoholics. So,
Oh, jeez.
so I do like the fact that, we can create all these kind of niche events that get people in on different nights a week.
Yeah, I think that's something that I really enjoy about what you've built down there. It's just that bingo, and bingo, I feel pulls in all age groups, right? You have older demographic, you have a younger demographic, you have kids in there playing bingo. You had Hava, who plays ukulele. There's a couple ukulele clubs here in Columbia County. They tend to be an older crowd, and they came out to support, a fellow uke player. And then, the trivia nights and the nonprofit nights. I feel like it's pretty well rounded.
Yep.
And it's hard not to want to be there every night.
Yeah. Yeah. The Pints for Nonprofits has really been great, and it was something that I never really saw going in the direction that it did. It was one of those things when I was writing the business plan. I seemed to recall seeing it somewhere, like it was kind of a fairly common thing for breweries to do.
Yeah.
Where they kind of do this fundraiser and give back to the community in that way. And in hindsight, once we actually got it off the ground, I tried to go back and do some more research to kind of get some ideas on how to actually pull it off. And I couldn't find anything out there. So it must have just been one of those brain farts that I had and put it on paper. And, it's turned out to be a pretty cool thing because, we are giving back to the community.
Yeah.
It's not a massive amount. We're a small community. So, it's typically, a few $100 a night, but it's meaningful, for the small nonprofits that we have. For a lot of them, that's quite helpful.
And it gives you exposure to, people who may not come into the tap room otherwise. They know that they're a nonprofit
Exactly.
that they support, or mom works for, or grandma benefits from, or whatever it might be, and now they're in your tap room.
Exactly. Yeah, it was not intended as a marketing thing. It was intended as a, kind of one of several things to give back to the community. And in hindsight, it's actually turned out to be a really good marketing thing because, like you said, it gets a lot of people in the tap room. And there's a lot of people that come out for those events that they would never step foot in a bar, or a tap room to never be caught dead in a place like that. And here they're coming out because they're getting to support a nonprofit that they believe in a cause or know someone that's benefited from them, or they're on a board or something like that. So it has been a pretty good marketing thing as well, just as a secondary benefit.
Yeah, and for those that haven't been to the tap room, I feel like the word tap room, it just sometimes has a negative connotation with people. But you go into Dave's, you go into Crooked Creek, and you've done so much to lighten and brighten that space. I mean, there's so much natural light that's coming in, beautiful wood, just a clean aesthetic, and it's like the opposite of seedy, and I think that's part of the reason that when people of all demographics come in, they want to come back.
Yeah.
I think you've done a really good job there.
Yeah, thank you.
So one last thing before we wrap up our first ever Columbia County Small Business Development Center podcast, which we need to come up with a name, and hopefully by episode 2 we'll have a name. We're taking suggestions, Tyler and Dave. So we're talking about marketing and how some of these efforts were just things that you wanted to do to give back to the community. What's a piece of advice that you would give to business owners that maybe aren't in the restaurant or hospitality business? How can they help get their name out there and market themselves a little bit more in Columbia County?
Oof, that's a good question. Definitely leverage social media. Leverage social media. It's free. It's a lot of work. Like, I hate it, honestly.
Well,
it sucks the life out of me, but it's free.
Your brewery is very active. We're a rural community, so Facebook is king out here, and I see that the brewery is active on all the community pages, and which is great. I would like to see more businesses be more active, even if they're not in hospitality, to just bring exposure. So that's great advice.
You manage those?
Currently, I do. Yes.
Impressive.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. It's constantly trying to come up with something. I've seen some people that do social media in the county, and kind of surprises me. Like when I was wondering if I should hire someone to do it, and scrolling through their feeds, like you see the same graphic or something up like 4 or 5 times, and it's like, really, they're doing this for a living, and they're just like reusing content over and over. So you got to have fresh content, you got to have unique content, you got to have authentic content, and so really a big part of the battle is just like coming up with something to post about constantly. We actually do very little posting about our beer, which I think is because, we're really trying to push community.
Yeah.
When people ask what our product is, a lot of times I sell our product is community. You have to have a product. So, it happens to be beer.
Right.
We make beer, but really what we're trying to sell is community and build community.
You bring up a good point. It's also about consistency. Tyler knows as the SBDC intern, just creating that content, having consistency across the platforms. Yeah, I feel like you guys have done a really good job about being consistent.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely see a dip in like the full seats on weeks where I don't do like certain posts, like a weekly update has been kind of one of our things that we've tried to do pretty regularly. And some weeks maybe I'm brewing, or for whatever reason I can't do it. Maybe I'm just exhausted. I'm like, I'm not doing it this week. And that week ends up being a little quieter in the tap room. So the next week I'm like, all right, got to do it. Got to do it.
I feel like when somebody sees just one post, it's just they'll scroll on by. But when they see one post and then the next couple of days they see 1 or 2 more, then they're going to pay more attention to that. And it's way easier to just make one post than it is to make 4 or 5 a week.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. Sometimes it's as easy as pushing that post through like some of the different like specialized groups on Facebook or something. I typically only post once. I post on Instagram and push it through to Facebook, which a lot of like pros have disrecommended. They actually recommend posting uniquely, like the algorithm reads stuff better. Like I just don't have the energy to do it, so I post it on Facebook, and because I like the format, I like that square format, and then I push it through onto our Facebook page as well, and then I can share it further to different groups and stuff, and it seems to work.
Yeah. The marketing aspect is unique to each community. Again, being in Columbia County and us being rural, just having that presence makes a huge difference. And again, being authentic and present, people know that you're the real deal. So we appreciate you, Dave.
Well, thanks.
We appreciate you,
Thank you, Dave.
being the real deal
Real deal.
and being on our first ever podcast.
Woo. You can say that for the rest of your life.
For us, yeah. Not that you're going to need a resume or anything.
So
awesome. And again, this was our first ever podcast. Thanks, guys. This has been fun.
Thank you.
It's been a blast.
Thank you for watching the Breakthrough Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If so, please share it with others, as we'd love to have more people hear these local stories. Additionally, the Columbia County SBDC is always a resource here for you. If you'd like to schedule a free one-on-one confidential business advising appointment, just look us up online. Additionally, Keep It Local Columbia County, if you go to keepitlocalcc.com, has an online directory that is free for your business to be listed on, and additionally, public events can be added on there for free too. Again, thanks for listening, and we hope you have an inspired day.